Hey there, emerging expat. You're tuned in to Let's Move to Portugal. I'm Victoria from Expats Everywhere's podcast, and I have the distinct honor of bringing you YouTube travelers and our resident Portugal experts, Expats Everywhere's Josh and Kaylee. Each week they'll inspire, they'll educate, and they'll accompany you on your journey to Portuguese residency. This week on Let's Move to Portugal, the conversation discusses the current state of the real estate market in Portugal and how foreigners can secure a mortgage with income from abroad. Stick around to find out more.
What's up, expats and travelers alike? Welcome back to the Expats Everywhere presents Let's Move to Portugal podcast. Kaylee, how you doing?
I am doing well. We're back in Porto now after traveling. So, that's always nice to get back home. It's fun to travel, but sometimes it's nice to get back home and especially back to Porto. Although, I would say, what is going on with this weather here?
Funky weather.
I cannot believe it. It's like foggy.
Foggy and very fall feeling.
Yeah, it's
If
weird.
you're not familiar with this podcast, we like to start out with producer Victoria giving you a little introduction, and then we do this weekly welcome for the next 5 to 7 minutes or so before jumping into the main event of the morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time you're listening to this at, where we talk to Rafael. Okay.
So, let me ask you, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, actually. So the first couple of days back, it did take a little doing to get into a rhythm. But now that we've dropped Valencia off for her first day at school, things feel much more like normal.
Yes. Yeah, that routine is really big for all of us, even for her. Like just getting, she was excited, which is good, excited to get back to school. But then the normal routine of like, all right, bedtime because we have school tomorrow, and waking up, taking her, getting going. Yeah, back to work, which is nice.
Yes, she's growing, and therefore they're getting her closer and closer to normal school times, like when elementary starts earlier than she's used to.
I don't love that. I would say for sure, because that means we have to get up earlier, but it is what it is, right?
It's adulting.
Adulting, yeah.
Isn't it? And we're adulting, which some people actually don't have to do in Portugal. We've heard of quite a few retirees that they've like just retired, they move here, and then it's like they have nothing to get up for, but there's no reason to wake up early.
Yeah. Right.
Have you talked to people like that?
Or
it's
they're
really
like,
funny.
Or it's funny, it's like, what day is it today? Because I don't actually need to know the days, which we've had friends say that to us who are retired. And it's like, that's awesome.
In fairness, it's pretty similar to us. We just need to know that it's like a school day for Zia.
Yeah, that's true.
But once you get midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you just kind of forget
what day
actual
is it?
date is or what date it is.
Right. Yeah, I never know the dates.
So then you're missing birthdays.
Family birthdays. I know I have a spreadsheet and everything, but I forget to look at the spreadsheet because I'm just like, I don't know what day it is.
It's so bad.
That is very true.
So if we've missed your birthday or as a friend or family member,
sorry.
That's why. Sorry.
Yeah.
We literally don't know what day it is.
Okay,
so what's happening in the world of Expats Everywhere? Like we said, we just got back, so we're going to start uploading again. We're in September, so we've taken our break. YouTube is calling us back, which is fun. And we wanted to let you know, because we've had several people reach out and ask us this, regarding the YouTube Shorts. The YouTube Shorts are about 2 weeks behind. Actually, not about. They're exactly 2 weeks behind. So we are a little further ahead than what you're seeing on our short feed.
For the language course.
For the language course, yes. So why did we do that? Well, because we needed time to edit and schedule the stuff. Like if I had to, we shoot after each class, like directly after each class. I turn my phone on myself and I give basically a 60-second spiel. Kaylee's is more like 50 seconds.
Mine's a little shorter. Josh rambles a bit.
I'm long-winded.
Yeah. Normally you say that about me, but.
Yes, agreed. But it would be very difficult and inefficient to be editing that every day and getting it posted. More inefficient, not difficult. It'd be more inefficient. So what we decided to do was hold it for 2 weeks and then just schedule it. So we've scheduled the next 2 weeks out. We have 3 weeks to go.
3 more weeks. Yay.
It's getting pretty exciting. I can't wait to be finished, and then we'll be able to tell you all how it went and show you our shiny A2 certificate.
Yeah, shiny.
I don't know if it's going to have a hologram or anything.
I don't know either, but we'll have it in hand, which will be really nice. Yes, I'm excited. I mean, not for this to be done because, of course, I want to continue learning and practicing. But, yeah, it'll just be nice to have that certificate.
Yeah,
for sure.
The other thing that we've been able to do since getting back, and it's really going to kick in because we're just starting the first week back of work, is getting to all your emails. We've been trying to keep up with it. It got really challenging over the past couple of days, but don't worry, we will respond to you. We thank you for all the emails that you've sent, asking questions and just wanting to connect. So we appreciate it. And
so we'll get caught up, and then in 3 weeks we head to Asia, where it'll be 2 weeks of not being around as much for emails and such.
Yeah, it'll be a bit of maintenance mode. But,
right. We'll still be putting stuff out. We'll still be putting videos.
Videos will keep coming out.
Yep. All that stuff will be going out, but we might not be as readily available as when we're in Porto because we'll be in Asia. Time difference will be tricky.
Yes. Okay.
So I might not be doing consultations that time because I don't have to wake up at like 2 a.m. or something for a consultation. But anyway, we'll work all that out. So let's chat about the podcast.
We'll keep you posted. Yeah. So this week we have Raphael on. I think it's his first podcast appearance, but he's been on the channel several times. He's kind of the go-to guy for us when we talk about mortgages and then also real estate because he's seeing so many transactions. And actually what we found over the kind of course of the last 3 years of being in the real estate space here in Portugal, what we found is because there's no MLS, in general, the bank that does the most volume in a like geographical area tends to have the best information on comps. So Raphael does mortgages nationwide, like literally all across Portugal, even the islands. So he's seeing this data and he's able to kind of have his fingers on the pulse of what's happening in a variety of markets. And we talk about that. We talk about what some of the hot markets are. And he gives us some tips on some smaller towns, especially in the interior of Portugal, that you might want to invest in or move to.
Like up and coming potential
I don't
there?
know if I would say up and coming. It would just be like really solid markets that you could invest in, get a house at a decent price, still have kind of the amenities that you're looking for to live in Portugal. Because so many people have flooded to Lisbon and Porto and Cascais over the past, let's say 5 years, 10 years. But there are some places interior where not many people are living, where the prices are very good. Even though prices across the country have risen, there's still a lot of value for money, I think, in those interior places. Now, is your investment more secure? That's a different debate, but at least like getting in you're getting in at a better price point.
Okay, well, this sounds interesting. Josh did this one, so anything else you want to comment, or should we just jump right in?
Well, I can say that we also talk about not just on the buying side, but on the rental side.
Good.
And then also how, as a foreigner, you could secure a mortgage with Raphael if you're interested in that.
Very important.
So banks are much more accustomed to working with foreigners now because of the influx.
Couple years.
Over the past couple of years of foreigners moving here buying. Because there's always been migration, but I think there's been a lot more interest in buying over the past 10 years. So, and over the past 5 especially.
All right.
Let's get to it.
Okay.
Let's go. All right, before we get started, let's talk about this week's sponsor, Green Ocean Advisors.
Well, I think the world right now can feel a little chaotic, but that doesn't mean that your finances have to, because I think when your finances feel chaotic, everything is just out of whack, right?
Yep, and Green Ocean Advisors will help you put together a plan to weather all those financial storms that may come your way. It's a little tricky whenever you make a move. You're often asking yourself questions like, is it time to invest in AI? What's up with that?
Ooh, AI, that's a good one. Or how about crypto? I think a lot of people talk about crypto or Bitcoin when it comes to Portugal because of the taxes. So is that for you?
Maybe closer to home is, should I sell my home before moving to Portugal, or should I rent it out?
Everyone's situation really is different, so it's good to talk to a financial advisor about your specific portfolio before you make the move, or even if you're already in Portugal.
Now, click the link in the description section below or in the show notes, depending on how you're consuming this right here. And be sure to click the one that gets you a free 15-minute consultation. It's specifically to Expats Everywhere. Thank you, John, for that. Now, on to the show. Raphael, let's dive into talking about the real estate market and also how foreigners can secure a mortgage with income from abroad. Welcome, Rafael. How you doing?
Thank you very much, Josh. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be in your podcast. This is a great idea. I think people would love this format. And yeah, let's talk about everything in terms of real estate market and mortgages for foreigners, etc.
Great. Well, we've had you in several videos since you were the guy that helped us get our mortgage here and really walk us through the process. So you're truly our expert in how this works. And Kaylee and I are really curious what's going on right now in the Portuguese real estate market, because it seems like things have changed. I mean, it's always changing, but it seems like things have changed in the past maybe 6 to 12 months. So what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, great, Josh. Yeah, as you know, I used to work in the financial area for now 30 years. I'm in Portugal in my 7th year now. I was like a pioneer in this field. Let's say having foreigners to finance properties in Portugal, and so it was like a learning curve for me and the banks also, because it was very difficult to approve someone like 7 years ago. But now the banks are much more accustomed to foreigner papers, and of course we know that 10% or 15% of foreigners are living in are the total population of Portugal right now.
Yeah.
So they have to adequate to that. So yeah, we are doing great. I think it's the learning curve is getting even better, and yeah, the market is still great. I think it's still very hot. Of course, you know that we had inflation all over the world, and interest rates were rising until last year, are still very high. And of course, this doesn't incentivize people to go for the buying. But so prices are more stable. Let's say the last 2 years, I can say, because they were rising very quickly since the pandemic. And in the last 1 year and a half, 2 years, they are more stable. They continue rising. So remember, because some people are predicting some kind of bubble, but this never happened.
Yes.
Because the inventory is so low here, because we are constructing today, even with all the incentives, we are constructing less than in the year 2000, for example. We're constructing,
really?
Yeah. So 24 years ago, Portugal was constructing much more than today. So I think we're still gonna need some years to have some kind of balance between supply and demand. So inventory, and because the demand is huge. From internally and externally, because people from all over the world are coming from the US, Canada, Brazil, all over Europe also. Okay?
Yes.
It's a global world, so it's happening for sure. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because you kind of touched on different buyers. Really, you touched on the internal market, which I assume you mean as local Portuguese population. But then you also have the foreign residents that have moved here that are moving beyond just being renters, and now they're becoming buyers, or they're wanting to buy before they move and then move into their new home in Portugal on arrival. And then you have the investors from abroad who are also investing not with the intent to live here, but just to have a rental property, a vacation rental property, something like that. Are you seeing any change in terms of the interest from the local market, the foreigners, and then the foreign investors?
I think everything is still very hot. Okay. Rental market is still very hot. I was reading that in May, the rents rise at 7% in average in Portugal. So it's a problem, of course, because rents are so high. But on the other way, it's an incentive for investment properties. So someone who has a property here can rent it out for long term or short term with great returns on investments, like from 6 to 10%. Okay, so I think it's very good. So and as you can get the mortgage from abroad, you can, let's say, put a deposit of 20-30%, and then the property will be paying itself. The tenant will be paying the property for you for 5 years or 10 years. And then later you can use it as an investment or even retire in this property someday. When you leave the US or your country, you have a house here, a property here that you can come and use as yours, right?
Yeah, earlier you said that prices have stabilized a bit. So what can you tell us about like what's happened in 2023 and then into 2024, since we have that data, right?
In my view, it was first a lot of conflicts all around the world, inflation peaking, interest rates very high, so people are a little afraid to invest. But you saw last week the European Central Bank start to cut rates, okay, and the Fed probably in September or until the end of the year they are projecting like 1 or 2 cuts. So when the let's say when the central banks start to cut rates, more people will enter in the market. Okay, for example, a very important ratio here is the monthly debt to net income ratio for how much you pay per month in loans and how much is your net salary. So when the rates go down, this ratio is more easy to approve, so more people can enter in the market. So I think with the interest rates going down in the near future, let's say 2024, 25, the market will be hot again, more people entering the market. And also foreigners, because if you look for the US, they have like a 30-year mortgage, like 6 or 6 point something percent. And here you can get like a 4%. Today I can give you a 5-year fixed rate for 2.9. So I think it's incredible. Relatively, it's much more cheaper to buy in absolute terms, because the houses in Portugal are more cheaper than in Canada or the US or even all over Europe. This is a problem on all over the world. The let's say the residential what we talk the gentrification, right?
Yes,
Prices are going high everywhere. Okay, so it's a problem to live in London downtown, in Berlin downtown, in the US, in several cities. In Toronto, Canada is very expensive. Vancouver, and of course Lisbon is going this direction. But Portugal is very, although it's a small country, is a very interesting small country where you have several incredible cities to choose from, Porto to more small cities close to the coast, more to the interior. Depends on your needs and the way you like it. So I think we have a lot to offer.
Yeah, for sure. And I was thinking whenever you were talking about prices and how prices have changed, and prices have gotten more expensive in certain markets and globally in general. I was just recently having a conversation with our contractor, and we were discussing the development costs of properties. And it's not currently that the materials are going up and we're seeing inflation in materials, but it's rapid inflation here in Portugal, at least, of the labor market. So these contractors are so busy with work, they can now turn away work and say, no, we want X amount of euros more for this project compared to the year before. So the cost of development has gone up, which always ends up getting reflected into the final price of the new build, right?
Perfect.
So,
Josh, I do agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do want to make people aware of that these influences on the price are not just in isolation. They kind of move with each other. And right now, one of the sides that's moving is the labor market. And it's not the materials. Whereas maybe when the wars were breaking out, it was the materials and logistics broke down, supply chain demand got a little crazy. Okay, so what do you think can be done to help increase inventory?
Yeah, so you said about the rise on the labor income, the labor expenses, right?
Yes.
For renovation. You have the skin in the game, right? Because you are
I do now.
making
Yeah.
this. You are making this for real, right? You have currently renovating a property. So yes it's usually, as my clients are, most of them from abroad, they are a little afraid to go on renovating properties. Some will go, but they are more reticent to move forward because they know that it will be difficult for them to control renovations from abroad, right?
Yep.
So unless they have like someone of they can trust here, but it's more difficult. So they prefer, let's say, ready to move properties that are ready to move. Sometimes we make little renovations, but not big renovations usually are not the type of clients, especially when they are from abroad. Okay, when they are resident, they are more willing to take this risk. Let's say.
Makes sense.
Okay, inventory. Yeah, I think the government has recently showed a proposal to reduce the VAT, the value added tax, from 23% to 13%, I think, or 6%.
Okay.
But it will take like a couple of years for implementing that. So it will take time for this to,
Yeah.
So it will take time for this to really hit the market. So I still see many years until we have some balance between supply and demand. Okay, as I was telling 2 years ago, when people were saying there is a bubble, but yeah, really inventory is a problem all over the world. The US has exactly the same problem. Okay, although you have another dynamic of construction, it's much different. But of course, you have like 300 million people. Here is 10, 11 million.
Right.
So we can compare, but in the end, it's like the same problem that we have. Low inventory, labor costs are high for renovations, and we don't have these incentives for
building.
Like we have a lot of taxes for constructing and renovating. So it's still a little complicated sometimes.
Yeah, okay? because permitting it's much easier to take a building and only work on the interior because you don't really have to pull that many permits for it. Whereas if you're trying to like redevelop a property and turn it into something else or expand it, the paperwork that you have to go through.
Interesting, Josh.
It gets bogged down and slowed down in government. I mean, I think we saw it firsthand whenever we were trying to develop the property and you were helping us along the way, getting us connected with the right people to help us make the process happen. It's difficult, and it does make forecasting into the future more difficult. Like you said, if the government cuts the VAT from 23 to 13, and it takes several years to do that, it'll take several more years for those properties to hit the market where there was a lower cost to construct them, I guess. Oh, fascinating. Okay, so I want to know.
Very well put, Josh.
Thank you. What are the hot markets right now that you see? What are some markets that you would be interested in investing in? Because you help people get mortgages all over Portugal. It's not just Aveiro where you're located or Porto where I'm located, here in the north. You do it everywhere. So what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think what is hot today, everything is kind of hot. I think investment properties are very hot right now.
Okay.
And of course, we know there is this. So as I said, last May, rents went up 7.1% just in 1 month.
Right.
So, of course, this is annually, but it's a lot. And so if you want to invest in, and when a foreigner buys here or finance here, usually they buy as a secondary house, which allows the client to use as an investment. So you can rent it for long term, short term, okay. Which is great. When you buy a primary house, at least formally, you're not allowed to rent it. Okay. Sometimes people do it, but formally it has to be a secondary house, or you have to transform it in a secondary house. Okay. And Porto is booming right now. I saw that 16% of the properties sell in Porto in less than a week.
Whoa. So is that right?
It's the number one ranking in Portugal right now. Porto. Whatever you put in the market sells very, very quickly. Okay.
Interesting.
So I think as Lisbon is so expensive right now, and Porto relatively is still fine, and it's an incredible city with all the amenities and cultural aspect, everything. People are looking much more to Porto this time. I think it's it's amazing, 16%, and other small cities are coming on this wave. Like for example, I've heard Lisbon is 10%, so 10% of the properties selling less than a week.
Okay.
Aveiro also, the islands are very very hot right now, Azores and Madeira. a lot of foreigners going there. I know they have like the digital nomad aspects, etc.
Yes.
But yeah, it's been very hot. Okay. One thing that I like to say is, as you know, 90% of the population of Portugal are close to the coast, right?
Right.
If you go to the border with Spain, it's a more low density area, let's say. And in my view, with my clients, let's say 80% of the closings are, let's say, in this. I'm not talking about sea view. I'm talking to a line of 50 kilometers from the coast.
Got it.
Where you have 80% of the transactions. Okay. So it's more, if you of course you pay the price to be in this area, but it will be more easy to rent. It will be more easy to sell if you need it, etc. If you go to the interior, you can have more affordable prices. Although there's a recent rising interest in central Portugal, for example, for houses in the interior, this kind of thing. So yeah, the central Portugal and the north of Portugal, people are looking more to the interior, especially foreigners. Foreigners are.
We've noticed that as well, just among our community, like hearing where people are interested in going. We just had a video that we did about Chaves that drew a lot of interest.
Exactly.
And for us, whenever we first moved here, it was like no foreigner we talked to had heard of Chaves. They're like, where is that? You know, and why would you move that far interior? But you have people now that are looking at these places as being good options. And when we went there, yeah, there wasn't a huge like booming expat or foreign community, but there were some foreigners there that seemed like they were well adjusted. The life there was very Portuguese in a good way. And it seemed nice. What are some smaller towns that people are looking at that you know that are interior? Like Vila Real or something like
Vila
that?
Real, Mesão Frio, Chaves, as you said, places close to Braga. Braga is a big city it's not an interior, but it's kind of interior, like 1 hour from the coast. We have two big cities outside the coastal area that are Coimbra and Braga. You can put Viseu and Évora also in this, like four interesting cities to. So all these area close to Braga, let's say the outskirts of Braga, or Amarante, for example.
Okay.
Other small cities.
I like the way you say Amarante.
Guimarães.
I like that.
Guimarães, etc. So yeah.
Okay. I'm curious about this place because we've had a lot of podcast guests that live in Cascais. Cascais is a place that has been known to be kind of the posh part of Portugal. It sits just to the west of Lisbon. For those that aren't sure where it is, the next town over is Estoril. So what's Cascais like? Has it risen at the same speed as Lisbon? What are the prices like there? I don't mean to put you on the spot. I don't know if you have the numbers, but is it as expensive as Lisbon?
It's exactly very, very similar to Lisbon.
Okay.
Yeah? So Cascais is the, I don't know, I compare like to California, maybe. It's the California. Yeah. Cascais is the California, and Lisbon is more Los Angeles, something like that.
Okay.
So, I mean, California, I mean, the beaches and everything.
Like the Malibu?
Yeah, Malibu. Great.
Okay.
So people are more into the running and cycling, more a lot of sports, you know. And Lisbon is more, let's say, not very close to the beach as in Cascais, right? In Cascais, you can have you can go down your building, and in 50 meters you are in making push-ups and running in the sand, this kind of thing. So it's more a sport like way of life, let's say.
Yeah, for sure. You know, we actually joke with some of our friends that live down in Lisbon when they talk about Porto and like all the weather up there, and they start to kind of badmouth Porto. And we're like, you know, at least we have a beach. Like we have a beach that's actually in our city. You guys don't. I mean, I know that it's close, right? It's very easy to get to, whether it be across the bridge to Costa Caparica or to go to Cascais or whatever. But it's funny to me to wind them up about that.
Yeah. People we have this kind of rivalry
Yes.
sometimes. But look, when you go to the interior of Portugal, for example, you're not going to Montana or some place very very far away. It's like
Right.
1 hour, 1 hour and a half from any coast or big city. Because whatever you are in the coastal area, in
Mm.
2 hours by car, you are crossing the border with Spain, right?
That's a good point. That's a very,
So
very good
you're
point.
not really so far away from and anywhere you are in Portugal, from a great from a big city or from anywhere that you want. Okay,
Yeah, that's an
so
amazing
yeah, you
point.
can go to you can go from Porto to Setúbal in like 2 hours and a half, maybe three
Yeah,
hours. Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah. And I think something that gets lost in people's thinking is some people get very fixated on having a coastline and having a beach. But when Kaylee and I were traveling around Portugal a couple summers ago, we noticed that there were a lot of smaller towns that had great value, and they also had river beaches. Fluvial,
oh
is that the
yeah,
name?
this
Right?
is some you touched on an amazing point. Yeah, great topic. Yeah,
Yeah,
fluvial beaches. Yeah, is
yeah,
is how we say it. Yeah, uh-huh.
yeah. River beaches, I
River
guess.
beaches, river beaches. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's something that okay, we have in the States to some degree, but not as common as it is here in Portugal. I mean, it seemed like they're everywhere. They're just dotted everywhere across the country. So for those people that love water, there's plenty of rivers and there's plenty of river beaches that you would
exactly.
live near, and you don't have to always go to the coast.
Yeah. You can find a lot of them if you put on the Google Maps. You can find dozens and dozens of river beaches everywhere. Yeah, in the interior of Portugal. Very well remembered. Yeah,
Nice. Okay.
yeah,
So
great.
you said Cascais has been a place that is popular among your clients. Where else are people looking? Cascais, you said the islands. Are there any other smaller places that we haven't touched on that seem to be maybe really pretty and also lower price?
Yeah, I think I think this area between Porto and Lisbon. Okay, this you can call it the Silver Coast. Let's say
Yep.
the Silver Coast will be booming in the next 10 years, I think. Okay,
Okay.
because with Lisbon so expensive, people are going up to cities like Caldas, Ericeira. Ericeira is already a little expensive because it's a spot for surfing, etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, all this area, Figueira da Foz, even Aveiro or Granja, more close to Porto. Espinho, you can say
Yeah.
it's also interesting. So all this area might probably will flourish in the next 10 years as people, as you said, insist to come to be close to the beach. Although
Yeah.
we have this recent interest in the interior, people are still coming to close to the beach, and probably this area, the Silver Coast and the area between Porto and Lisbon, will be flourishing for sure.
Okay. Awesome. Good to know. Do you have any advice for someone looking to buy in the current market? Because some people are worried maybe they're buying on a bubble. What are some
Yeah,
pieces of
yeah.
advice?
I continue with my view of 1 or 2 years ago that we are
Mm,
not in a bubble because inventory is very low.
mm,
Uh, and I think as prices are more stable right now, so maybe this second semester of 2024, beginning of 2025, is still a good time to buy because interest rates will be still a little high,
okay.
uh, not for American standards, but
Right.
for the locals. But once the locals come into the market again, of course it will be booming the prices once more. I think. Okay, probably not in the same craziness that was in the like years ago, but yeah, continue rising. Because anyway, we have inflation, right? Inflation is at least 2-3% everywhere, so the
Mm,
prices will be going up with even with a small inflation. But yeah, they will be going up. The inflation of assets, as we say, will
okay.
continue to rise. So I think it's a great time for a foreigner to acquire a property in Portugal because uh, yeah, maybe the rates today are not great, but you can give like a 2.9. So I think it's incredible. It's a very good rate, 2.9 or 3.5, something around that.
Yeah.
And you can adjust these rates later, right? After 3-5 years, if you make the mixed rate, for example, you can try to adjust. It's more risky than a fixed rate for all for the entire period, but you can try to adjust this later, right? I think Portugal will be in the spot for the next years for sure, and the prices will reflect that.
Okay. Do you have any advice for people that are looking to research market trends and property laws, tax implication, things like that?
Yeah, we have. I think we can. For example, we have good lawyers that can talk about these specific questions that the client might have. We can introduce you to fine lawyers to talk about taxes, implications from bringing your fiscal residency, let's say, to Portugal, if necessary, because sometimes it's not necessary. So depending on your if you want a visa or don't want a visa, so it depends. So, but we can advise the clients to with good lawyers or experts to help you with that.
Okay. A question that popped into my mind way earlier. So this is kind of going to derail our flow, but just allow me to ask this out of pure curiosity. Do you know the number of Portuguese that are buying compared to the number of foreign residents and foreign investors? Do you happen to know what the breakdown of that is? Because many people seem to think that it's all the foreigners that are buying properties, but we heard a number from a real estate agent of ours, and I'd like to see if it's similar to what you know.
This is so untrue, Josh, because the last numbers that I have in mind, it's recent. It's like 20 something billion for locals and only 3 billion for foreigners. Okay. So it's like let's say 10% or a little more than 10%, 15%.
Yeah.
Not more than this. So they are not, for sure, they are not inflating the market. What is happening is that the lack of inventory. Of course, the pandemic has a huge impact on this because a lot of works were stopped at the time. A lot of investments were stopped at the time. And Portugal, as you know, don't have the dynamic as in the US or other places to react very fast to the demand. So the demand that then came a huge demand, a huge wave after the pandemic, and they were not ready to respond in time. So inventory, they are coming, but it's still very low, and the demand continues. Even with Golden Visa going out or NHR going out, although the NHR still exists, okay? So you can talk to an expert to see how you can fit in this classification, let's say.
Yes.
And so we can still do that, okay?
Okay. So we were talking earlier about investors and people that are looking to invest in property. What is a typical rate of return or ROI for real estate here in Portugal?
Yeah, as far as I know, we can get up to a return on investment of around, let's say, 5-6% for residential properties.
Okay.
Which is much more easy to administrate, let's say, because you just, for example, my sister has an apartment here in Portugal, in Aveiro, for example, and she has a tenant for 3 years already. So it's not a big
stable.
Yeah, exactly. So it's easy to administrate. It's not a huge profit, but it's constant and regular. So for her, it's perfect. But with the Airbnb, maybe you can get like 80 or 10% return on investment. But of course, you need an agency to do all the manage of the property, etc. And yeah, it's much more complicated. But yeah, of course, we have the experts to do that. Okay.
Is that 8 to 10% after the property management companies take their cut? Like you pay the cleaning fees and all of the fees that are involved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Sure.
Okay.
Of course, it depends a little bit on the area, right? Algarve, for example.
Yeah.
You rent your property in Algarve for 3-4 weeks, for 3-4 months, and that's enough. Usually, you don't rent in January or February because it's cold, and in 3-4 months you make the income for the year, right? On the other areas like Porto, Lisbon, you cannot charge so high as in the Algarve, but you can rent it all the year round, for all the year, right?
Right. And for the listener that doesn't understand kind of the dynamic of Algarve is very famed for summer tourism across Europe. So many tourists, especially Brits, will travel down to Algarve. Certainly, they're drawn there because of the water and golf as well. So people tend to rent properties for long weekends or full 1-2 week stays, and they'll pay very, very well to get nice apartments and houses, villas in Algarve. So that's why 3 or 4 months of renting in Algarve can be all that you need to kind of pay the property across the year, which is fascinating. It would be neat to have something like that. Okay, so let's talk about mortgages. What advice do you have for people that are interested in securing a mortgage or just buying a property in Portugal in general?
Yeah, I think Josh, the important thing to say here is that uh, you don't need a visa, you don't need to have a Portuguese passport, you don't need to declare income tax in Portugal. You just show, for example, your 1040 form in the US, your pay stubs there, with no let's say any kind of relation with Portugal, and then you can invest here using Portuguese banks and finance up to 70 or 80% of the property, using your financial details from abroad, from the US, from Canada, or whatever other country. So I think it's amazing, uh, uh, with great rates, as I said, 2.9 or 3.5 today. Probably in 6 months from this conversation, rates will be even lower.
We'll check back in with you, definitely.
So I think it's a great opportunity. The banks are are much more accustomed to foreigners, so it's much more easy for an approval now than when I began 7 years ago.
Yeah.
It was very difficult to make an approval for a foreigner. So, but yeah, I think it's very interesting. There is a good thing also that when you have a mortgage, the bank will check all the documents for you.
Yeah.
So this is
we
amazing.
Appreciated that.
So because the bank will never fail that. So they're gonna check CPU, CRP, if all the errors are okay, the plans of the property, right? So you know that you are buying something that is 100% legal. So just for this aspect, it's great to have the bank by your side, because they will check everything as the property will be a collateral for them, right? But by the way, is the only this is why you can make an international loan, because the collateral is in Portugal. Okay, for example, I cannot get a credit in France, in banks in France, to buy a property in Portugal, because the collateral is outside. Although it's in the European Union, it's outside the country. So you have to have the banks and the collateral in the same territory. Let's say, okay.
Yeah.
That's why the US will not finance here, and vice versa.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So for someone that wants to buy a property, the only thing that they would really need is a NIF number. Is that correct?
Yeah, the NIF number is very easy to get, right? You can make all these NIFs and all the process remotely if you have someone representing you here. You just need to have, let's say, 20% for down payment plus around 5-6% for closing costs, a job abroad or a company abroad that pays you regularly in your account, and you can access credit in the Portuguese bank. Okay. For example, if you come to me, I will bring you different banks. Of course, is a select number of banks that will finance foreigners up to 70 or 80%. Others will finance much lower. But I will bring you the best options, and then you can choose the best way to go.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my question was if people that are listening to this don't have a NIF yet, but they just want to know what they're pre-approved for, you could still run their documents even though they don't have their NIF yet. And then if they buy, or they're interested in buying, then get a NIF, which, like you said, very, very fast. Nowadays, you can get a NIF in under 2 weeks. So
exactly, Josh. Yeah,
okay.
I can make the pre-approval, let's say, that in fact is just a checking of debt to net income ratio, origin of income, etc.
Yeah.
And you can provide the NIF later when you move for real. Usually the process is like that. I make the pre-approval first. This is very quick. In 5, 6, let's say a week. In 1 week, I pre-approve you, and then you can start your search, knowing how much you can get with the banks.
Yeah,
and then you can, awesome. If you're really interested, you can start providing the NIF and everything. You take your time, you find your property. Once you find the property, you come back to me and say, Rafael, I found the property, I put in an offer, they accepted, so let's move forward with bank B, for example, with the fixed rate, and then I'll start the process that will take like 6 to 8 weeks to complete. Okay, so first pre-approval, then the search, and then 6 to 8 weeks once you find the property until the closing itself, let's say.
Okay. Well, normally we ask a parting question to all of our guests about living abroad, transforming lives. But I want to ask you if you have any parting words for people just on how great it is to live in Portugal.
Oh, great question, Josh. Yeah, I think Portugal is great. You know that I lived in other countries before Portugal, just as like you. And I think Portugal today is the best place to be. At least for me, Flavia. We think this is Flavia is my wife. Yep. I think we love this country because it's so safe. It's great to be safe. I think America in general is much more agitated. It's much more. Violent. I can say violent. In several ways.
I think both of our home countries share that in common. We have a lot of craziness going on.
Yeah, Brazil and the US. You know what I say. I'm not talking. Yeah. We're more accelerated countries. Here we are in a more slow pace, a more tranquility, so safe. I think the healthcare is great. Is another thing that is very important for us. The climate is great. You cannot find a better climate in Europe. Maybe just in Greece or Italy, right? So, but we are on one of the best climates in Europe. Low cost of living. This is a little but
apart from
for
housing.
example, I think if you solve the house problem, the rest is much more easy.
Agreed.
Right? If you have a place to live, if you have your property, the rest will be a piece of cake for an American or for a foreigner.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? I was looking at your video about the Italy, comparing Italy and Portugal.
Yes.
And we have like the index, the Portugal index, because you have short commute times, low pollution. I can add amazing food, great wine. I think these last two are great for me.
I can't believe it took us 35 minutes to start talking about the wine, but now, but now our time is up. Well, Rafael, thank you so much. We're definitely going to have you back on again, both the YouTube channel and the podcast, and really encourage people if they're interested in checking out properties here in Portugal and seeing what they can afford, that they reach out to you. You can email Kaylee at info@expatseverywhere.com and she'll make an introduction to you. But also if you're interested in asking questions to Rafael, if there's something I didn't ask, then email podcasts@expatseverywhere.com and we'll put those questions together to have another sit down chat with you and get our listeners questions answered. How does that sound, Rafael?
Great, Josh. It was a pleasure to participate in your podcast. Thank you very much for having me. And just remember the followers and listeners that it's a great time to buy here in Portugal. The conditions are amazing. So just schedule your free video meeting. My services are free of charge, as you know. So I can guide you through all the process and help you make valuable introductions, whatever you need. And we are here to help. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rafael. Appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.